Some of her family members are within our community, and they've given her the invitation today to our program. So Diane, you and I were talking before being on camera, this is not your first time attending a function.
No, it's not. I've been to several. Yep, some of the parades and some of the celebrations, and just about everything that I'm invited to and I get to hear about, I try to get to.
And so, as we started speaking off camera, are we getting any better with our program?
Absolutely, absolutely. The speakers are always fabulous and always wonderful, and I've heard a couple of them a couple of times now, and they still just really speak to me and speak to diversity and speak to the strengths that we are all trying to achieve. And I just get, every time I get more and more out of it, and I'm gratified to see that there's more and more people actually coming together to enjoy it and to learn.
This particular program, I noticed there were a lot more non-Muslims attending than previously, which I thought that was exciting.
I noticed that as well. Immediately when I walked in, and I was placed at a very perfect, had a perfect view to be able to see, the people that were there, and I was gratified to see just how many people there were there. And it looks to me like from people from Owego, even possibly. I know that people came from Virginia, but I also know that there's people from our community from Binghamton that have actually gotten here to make this, and that's just great. And I think the more people that know about it, and the more people that are open-minded enough to come and to really learn and listen, that they're going to find that they can get as much out of these programs as anybody can, and certainly as much as I can.
So when you leave these programs and you go back to your community and your friends and your family, what do you take with you, and what is the response?
I think I take with me education, maybe a little bit more than I should. I talk about it a lot. As a matter of fact, I just had a conversation yesterday about Holy Islamburg and some of the misconceptions that surround the good people there and the families and the community that's there. And really try to get people to realize that they really need to make their input, their opinions based on facts and based on personal experience, rather than the greater media community or whatever. Because it's just it's only fair to every human being to be judged based on their real, true identities, and that's not anything to be afraid of finding out about. And I think that ignorance is really the biggest obstacle that we face. So every time I leave one of these, I go back with more information and with more strength and every time I hold my grandson and I see my son and my beautiful daughter-in-law in their family, I'm gratified and I'm warmed. I'm very blessed.
Because you have a personal connection with the community, what would you recommend that we as a community need to learn about Christians?
You as a community to learn about Christians. Speaking from my experience, my spiritual experience, that's a very difficult question. I don't know if I can answer that, because I don't think that the ignorance comes so much from that side, Well, it does, it doesn't. I think open forums, I think, is a great, and I was just speaking with Yasmin about this, open forums so that people really understand how much we have in common, and the bases and the morals and the ethics and the love for our country, and the fact that we can actually both be here and be religious in the ways that we want to, is just a huge common denominator. And so I think just open forums where you can actually ask each other questions. How do you feel about this? Why do you do this? Why don't you do this? Are you able to do this? How do you pray? And who do you pray to? And why do you pray to that person? And what do you get out of prayer? I mean, all those questions that we both ask ourselves, whether you're Christian or whether you're Muslim or whatever whatever your choice is. I think that everybody has to visit that, and as an open forum, and being open-minded, and actually being willing to listen and to take it in deeply and to accept it and respect it as really part of people who they are as themselves in their lives and how they conduct themselves in their lives. So I think it's it's not just you learning about Christians or Christians learning about Muslims. I think that it's a much broader thing than that. I think everybody's got to learn about everybody, and this is a great, because there's so much in common with these two groups, that's a great place to start. But I don't think it ends there.
Well, let me ask you this then. We spoke with Dr. Diane Harrington earlier. I might be saying the wrong name, O'Haron, Dr. O'Haron. And she was saying that the board of the UMCF will be meeting in May to try to come up with additional projects or Sure. The board of the UMCF will be meeting in May to try to come up with additional projects and programs other than the 2 annual programs that are currently set up. Do you have any recommendations for that board?
Boy, I'd have to think about that. Open forums. I think it would be wonderful for women to meet with Muslim women so that they can have a better understanding of them and their culture and the choices that they make, and without feeling threatened or whatever. That's something that I've talked with Yasmin about and thought that might be a good way to start something like that. So maybe some break-off workshops where, I mean, I would even be willing to help with that. So, just being involved in it and without the fear of, getting into something over my head or whatever. I think that maybe breaking into small groups like that might be a good idea, focusing on different questions so that it doesn't get too broad. And that's about all I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.
And thank you so much for joining our program today.
Thank you for having it. Thank you. Okay.